Hey, beautiful people. This is going to be quite interesting. I'm doing a video actually on my own property, the heart of Turtle Island. It's about 20 miles north of Memphis on Highway 14. I'd left Panama City with the feeling that I had to come this way, and when I went back home to Mississippi, I found that was a very intense need to come this way. We had a washout on a dam on the property, and anyway, I'm here now, setting up an eco-village, alternative energy research center, aquaponics, permaculture, and right now just trying to deal with cold weather that we've seen with this Arctic vortex for the past month and a half since I've been here. This has been one of the most intense times that I've ever experienced being out in the bush. And I guess you'd call this bush because I'm literally carving out the wilderness behind me. That is my property on the opposite side of this lake. There's 47 acres here, and it literally had grown over since my daughter and I had planted 750 black walnuts back in 2007. Those black walnuts turned out to be pecans when I went to check them. Behind me, you can see the easement on the road coming in. We actually have an easement from Highway 14 into here with 100 feet on both sides of the road, which is suitable for parking for any events or long-range persons coming to study and participate here. The reason why that we're going to have to park out here is behind me you can see a dam that has just one lane across it, and by code we can't subdivide a piece of property with only one lane across a dam, and being about the better part of 100 yards long, that'd be quite an expensive venture to drain the lake and to put in a 2-lane dam there. That means that only one permanent residence can be built on this property, and I couldn't subdivide the property unless I built a 2-lane road into here. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a farm with people coming working on aquaponics and permaculture, organic farming, as well as animal husbandry or orchard, or even vineyards. And so this is all presented quite a unique situation. Being landlocked can actually turn out to be very good in the long run for me. I plan on having this particular property completely off-grid. And as you can see, looking behind me, you can see the 25-acre Lake Ellen, which is the name of the lake here on the property. It's one of the largest lakes in Tipton County, and if you do an aerial view, Google Earth, you'll see just how big it is, and it's one of the biggest. With all the ponds and lakes around here, this is one of the biggest. If you look down the side of the dam, and you look down into what is below, you can see that there's about a 30 to 35 foot drop off. And for me, at first I was like, oh man, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to deal with all this? Guys, I got to find my cursor here. There it is, because I can't even really see myself or see what the video is doing today, since we've got these cold gray skies. Man, it's been one rough past couple of months with all the cold temperatures. It's been down to 15. One day it was like 12. and I was camping in a tent. I got here and it was summertime. Within 3 days the Arctic vortex hit, and you know, I've got a lot of Arctic experience, but in the Arctic, dealing with 40 below at 0 humidity is a totally different ball game than dealing with 15 above with 60% humidity. It near about took me out. I had to go into my friend's house, James Brown. James Brown's turn to be quite a participant in what I'm doing here. In fact, he just bought 35 acres less than a mile down the road and on the other side of the highway for the same thing that we're doing here, but for on-grid. This is going to be the off-grid, that's going to be the on-grid. Well, back to looking at that 35-foot drop. If you understand how hydroelectric power is made, right here on the dam, I'll have a pipe that goes off into the water to maybe about 25 feet out. I've still got to contend with some beaver here. And that pipe will be held down by a flotation device, and just below the water level here we will have a gate valve, and I'm talking a good 1 foot in diameter pipe, maybe 18 inches depending on what we can find. We'll have a gate valve just below the water, and at the highest point, which would be right on the edge, with a drop going across the dam and then down the 35-foot drop into the ravine. We'll have another gate valve at the top here where we'll fill up the water source of the pipe, and a gate valve that's at the bottom down there. And then it'll transition from an 18-inch pipe or 1 foot pipe down to 6-inch, a 4-inch, a 2-inch, 1-inch, half-inch, whatever, that will run through a Pelton wheel or hook it up to a 3D printer and have some water steel cutting or water wood milling, where we've got water jets that are actually doing the cutting. This is all doable here. So we can make our own power. Off below the dam, I've got about 6 or 7 acres down here, and there is a lower pond down there that's clay, and we've got all kinds of straw and wood chips and other different type of material here for building cob structures, which on an off-grid farm, it's just like building a tree fort. And as long as we only have one main residence here, my own, anybody can come and build other cob structures and stay just less than the term of residency, which would be about 6 months. And just like any place else, if you're not staying there in that one spot, hear me clearly, in that one spot, and you move to a different place of residence for another just less than 6 months, then you're kind of transient. You're not a resident. I envision quite a few of those that will be on the other side of this property over here. A little community. And as long as we're not hooked up to the grid, there's not too much anybody can say. But I do intend on trying to work with the building department for building and code. And they don't have too much code on off-grid structures here, on hobbit houses or underground structures or straw bale or much of anything. And so James, who's already contacted the building department, talked to the inspector, and the inspector seems to think that we're going to be writing code for what we're doing. And that's part of what I want to do here, is to have a place where we can build multiple different types of structures, and we can design the code for off-grid houses. We can't keep on building houses like this. Those houses, they're inefficient. they're raping the planet. All the materials come from every place else. It costs so frickin' much to build them. You've got to deal with the banks and the banking system just to borrow the money to build your house. You've got to, because of that, you're paying interest, which you'll end up paying 2 to 3 times the cost of the house in interest to the banks. And then you've got to have all your insurance money for building it, and it's just a frickin' scam. And a lot of people are wanting to go off-grid. There's a lot of off-grid communities that are starting up all over the place, and persons choosing to live in that type of a lifestyle so that they haven't constantly got to be spinning their wheels and out to make money, and they can more easily follow their dreams and do what they need to do to clothe and feed themselves, and do it as a community. I see this happening all over the planet. I was headed down to Peru not too long ago to do the same thing. I lived in Hopi Land doing something similar at Titus Farm. I went to Dunellen, Florida, and was setting up an organic farm there with the same promise of having land where I can do the same thing there, but found that the persons who I was with was already connected to the grid, and I can't start building an off-grid structure on a place that's already connected to the grid. So I've got a piece of property, just less than 50 acres, with all the resources necessary, where this can be done. Up here on this other side, I've got several beaver I got to take care of, and I don't want to kill them, and I don't really want to use foot traps, but I've got to get rid of them somehow. And beaver are some pretty ferocious critters if you ever messed with them. But anyway, where the beaver's taking out my pecan trees my daughter and I planted over here, and they've actually gotten to be about 35 feet tall now in bearing. The beaver's taking them and creating a dam at the very far east of this lake here. But right at that point, there's a hill going all the way up to an apex. And I see taking cob and actually building troughs that are about 4 foot wide, about 8 or 10 foot long, with a 3D printed basin in the cob structure where peat moss or other type of substrate like a rock wool could be laid in, and then pumping water aquaponically from the lake here, which is fully stocked. We've got brim and bass and catfish and bluegill, and we've got beaver leaving its fertilizer in there, and got over 100 geese that live here, and ducks every night, and it's just amazing all the life and critters that we have here. And all that fertilization we'll take and pump back to the top of the hill and let it go down through a chamber of one certain type of plant, might be a certain type of lettuce, into a chamber of another certain type. And so there'll be different levels, like locks on a dam, on a river, where we can actually use the lake and just use a solar jack water pump to pump the water up to a holding tank up top, and that comes out a header to feed all the different runs and troughs of aquaponics systems we got. Now, we also want to do some camping, and have some paid camping, a little way of income, as well as fishing, as well as a beach. Right here where the same aquaponics can be done, and all around the edge right here, we want to clear off a lot of the grasses. And since there's no beaches here in Tipton County, and the Mississippi River I can get sand from, it's about 15 miles off, we can very easily turn that into a beach and have another way of making income for the property here. Well, we had a washout. Actually, all this of me coming back here started with the state of Tennessee saying I've got some issues with my dam, which the spillway used to be on the neighbor's side, but the state of Tennessee was told by Tipton County, the county of Tipton, where I'm in, that I own the full lake, and by me owning the full lake, I own the spillway on the other side on their property, which was a false statement, and it started a big hoopla. Whereas the state of Tennessee, the Dams and Engineering Department, told the neighbors whose property the spillway was owned to crush their spillway and to move it over to my side. So these guys did that. And I was like, what? I kept on telling them, I don't own the spillway. You can't do that. But this is what brought me back to my property. Because if they would have fixed their property and dug out that spillway that we just walked across, that could cost them many, many tens of thousands of dollars. But when they dug this spillway out and put in this pipe going to the other side, we had a washout in the dam right here. And this past weekend, James Brown and I got a bobcat and took out all the clay necessary, built us a little access road back there, where we can get back down to that lower pond for all our clay for doing cob, for the aquaponics, or for structures, or even pottery. See, I see all different types of people being here. I see persons who not only do permaculture and aquaculture, animal husbandry, or vineyards, or winemaking, or you know, orchard growing, and part of what I want to do here is have a full orchard and vineyard. Many of you guys know I like my wine. And so why not grow it all right here? I'd love to grow a bunch of Merlot grapes under my pecans and black walnuts, with other structures even below that where we can do our lettuces and those organic aquaponics runs. Well, anyway, right there you can see the new road that we just built, and how we reinforced the dam. My original calculations for how much dirt this would take, how much clay this would take, I was figuring it was going to be about 50 or 60 yards, and that way we could branch it out a little bit farther on both sides and make it wider. Well, I think it was about a third of what it was supposed to be in my calculations. We were using a half a yard bucket on a bobcat, and we made just less than 200 runs, full runs, to fill this up. What a frickin' trip! But anyway, we got fresh deer tracks here. See them right here? That was this morning. Oh man, you wouldn't believe all the animals around here. We had 2 goats. Had a milk goat and a little Nigerian dwarf as her mate, and as it got so cold, and I got snowed on twice already this year. I mean, months before it was supposed to start snowing. I'd popped my Achilles tendon and stayed out here 3 days after the snows really set in good. And it wasn't getting over freezing during those days, and my core temperature went down, and I had to go in town and ask James for a place to stay so I could warm up and heal. And as I was healing and wanting my Achilles tendon to heal up, we lost our goats. And as I came back, there was panther tracks around, mama with a little cub, and I'd been hearing it thinking it was a bobcat, and I could have been hearing bobcats also, but this was no doubt a panther. I'm quite used to panthers and mountain lions and cougars and stuff. Its paw print was as big as the palm of my hand, and you don't have bobcats that have paws that size. And that happened in the 3 days that I'd come in to heal up. And we came back out, and lo and behold, our goats were gone, and I hadn't found any carcasses. And as I'm hiking around, I've yet to see them having wandered to other person's houses. And the closest neighbor's about a half mile off when you go walking around. Anyway, I'm gonna have to have goat tractors and chicken tractors and turkey tractors, and I plan on having all kinds of animals out here. Sandra Walter was saying, gotta have some llamas, and I'm going, yeah, I want some llamas, no doubt. Anyway, you can see how this area, how thick it was, and it's all died off. But what I'm doing over here is I'm taking the limbs off the trees, saving as many of the trees as I can, but taking the limbs off as high as I can reach and creating a very high graze line. And that graze line will allow us to access everything. These trees, which are red maples and some river birches and some oaks and some other different types, we'll use for the roofing for our cob structures. So I'm leaving them grow and letting them get bigger and bigger, unless I've got to clear out around black walnuts, which I'm purposely growing, or my pecan orchards, which I'm purposely growing. It just rained its rear end off the other day, but we actually have a well on the property, and this is the well head that's now underwater. And this was well, you can see the maple tree that actually grew up and around the spigot. And I mean, that spigot was inside the tree. James had posted some pictures on our Facebook page, Heart of Turtle Island, of just that. And it took us forever to cut down this maple, and then it took me the better part of a day to trim out around the spigot and to chop up the wood that actually held the spigot. And then I used it for firewood. And this particular piece that broke off the spigot right here, this particular piece, I had to burn out of the tree to retrieve it. That was a most amazing thing to witness. I'd not seen that happen before. But anyway, we've got a 230-foot deep well, and we actually have a septic. My father was planning on building his residence here back in the 1990s. In fact, the day that I moved here was exactly 16 years to the day that he passed. And it's amazing how that all unfolded. And here we've got a septic system that he actually, all this was permitted, so we're within permits. And you can see up top in the trees there, that telephone pole, where it's got a transformer, but that was back when he had his place all connected to the grid. We're not connecting to the grid. We've already got a well, we've already got septic system, and anything that we build in the higher levels here, we can allow all that to flow back into. As far as the well goes, we're thinking about, James and I are thinking about building a tower that sits higher than anything else on the property, and using a solar jack water pump to use the sun's solar power to pump the water up from the well below and to be able to feed all the water all over the property. James did gasification for years, and I was following a lot of his work, not knowing that was his work, back in the mid-2000s, and was looking at how cities were going to use gasification to rid there's cities of the waste and of the landfills and stuff. Anyway, he got stopped by BFI and Waste Management because they make money on their landfills. But I didn't know it was his work. Now I do. And I'd been following his work with gasification. And gasification creates a plasma out of biomass, whether it's just, you know, what's on the ground like that, or, well, I got big piles of wood here all around. It uses that, or used tires or cardboard or anything to take the rest of the other garbage and via a plasma turn it back into its basic elemental chemical composition. And James was working on that, and I'd been following it and was always interested in it, but didn't know that was his projects until I had injured myself and went and stayed at his house, and he was showing me all of what he had done in his history. That's really freaking cool. And so anyway, I've been following his work, very interested in his work for some time in alternative energy. Just like many of you guys follow my work. And so anyway, what a trip. All right, well, I want to show you one of many different horse apple trees we have. Horse apple is one of the toughest trees there is. They use it to make longbows with. They also use it to use for fencing because it doesn't rot. It's even better than cedar or cypress or anything like that. They also use it, it's so hard, it's 2.5 times more dense than white oak, and it's used for nails in wooden structures. Well, this property is covered in these horse apple trees. That's what this curved structure is behind me. That up under it is a black walnut. It fell onto a black walnut. Now, if you look off into the woods, you'll see others of horse apple trees out there that are laying down, and the horse apple trees those might be 40 or 50 years that they've been laying there, and they're still in fact, they get harder when they fall. It increases to more than 2.5 times the density of that white oak. And so this is a living tree here that I don't know how well you can see it because I can't see what's going on here, but we've got many of these all over the property, which are perfect for little hobbit homes, hobbit structures. And there's plenty of other horse apple that we can use for the roofing structure, and then we can use straw bale and rammed earth cob for walls. And they're all around here. They are just everywhere. And I also have many, you can see like these giant maples back behind. I also have many of those where we can build real tree houses. And then we also have, like, I envision this particular place as being a community kitchen right here. And with all the produce that we have coming from the organic farm, we're going to have to store it in certain ways. And the ground temperature here is 55 degrees year-round in the ground. I guess you can see that big hole that's right there. And then you see a couple of sinkholes right here. Well, if we had from the kitchen right here, walking off into a root cellar that's been dug out, and then right next to the root cellar, have a framed in second room that, not urethane foam, but a hemp foam or a soy foam for closed cell that could be our insulative quality. And then a third room, well, the second room would be for refrigeration. In the third room, I would take a 12 volt, and in that second room, I would get a 12 volt refrigerator or an ammonia hydroxide refrigerator, or, you know, propane or something like that, probably a 12 volt just makes more sense to go with 12 volts, since we can do solar here, and we've got great solar capability, as well as creating hydroelectric power flow. But take a 12 volt refrigerator inside that underground room that's 55 degrees that has been insulated with closed cell foam, and turn that into a walk-in cooler. And then the farthest one, let's see, the farthest one, turn that into a walk-in freezer. And do the exact same thing, except put in a ice chest freezer below ground in that room. And so, you know, I can see this as being a Hobbit kitchen, community kitchen place, and having the refrigerator freezers here. Sounded like turkey back there. And I met one of the neighbors, said they don't have turkey here. He also said they don't have panther here. Well, that's baloney. They got turkey, panther, and bear. Anyway, they got all kinds of stuff. All right, these are pecan trees here. And pecan trees here, I went through and marked a lot of the trees and what we want to save. Hickory trees, black walnut on the other side, I tagged them all. Pecan, black walnut. I want to grow pecans because that's a fantastic orchard tree, but black walnut is worth its weight. Well, I wouldn't say in gold, because black walnut's pretty heavy, but black walnuts, if you plant an acre of black walnuts 30 feet apart in a grid pattern, for every year after that acre of black walnuts, it'd be about 1,000 trees per acre. For every year that black walnut is planted on there, the property increases by 40%, and that's if it's a lumber quality black walnut. They say in 30 years, the black walnuts, 30 to 35 years, the black walnuts are ready for harvest, and a lumber quality would be $125,000 per acre at today's current prices for black walnut in lumber quality. But you increase that by 3.5 times if you grow a veneer quality. But veneer quality just means it's got 15 feet with no limbs and no bullet holes or anything like that. And it could be spun off into veneers. Well, you can see down below where I'd collected a bunch of black walnuts. Actually, James's sons had collected those black walnuts and put in there so we could start growing them ourselves and plant here. But the deer came through on the day that it snowed and decided to have a feast with what we had gathered. But there's still plenty more all over on the ground everywhere I look. And black walnut also, you not only get the use of the tree, you know, they make fantastic furniture. They used to use it for rifle stocks, but we don't want to use rifle stocks, but we can make some fantastic furniture and other different things with it. But green black walnut hulls, for anybody that understands natural healing, that's one of the best parasite killers we've got. We've got wormwood, green ground powdered black walnut hulls, and fresh ground cloves is what you use for parasite killing. So this is another reason why I want to grow them. And plus, walnuts are about 15 bucks a pound hold when you try to buy them that way. You can see behind us, and so I plan on growing them. And I also have learned after Hurricane Katrina what's called the rapid growth process, where you take that and you plant it in a small pot, which we can make our own pots from the clay here on the property, and we can probably build a kiln with our electricity produced, but you plant it in a small pot. When the tree has gotten root bound, then you remove the plant from the pot and you trim the tap roots, and that tap roots cause all the feeder roots, capillaries, to expand into more tap roots. And you do that about every 4 to 6 months for a period of about 3 to 4 years. And then when the plant's about 10 foot tall, you place it in the ground, and you'll decrease that growth from being 35 years to 20 years to 15 years. You can cut down the time that it takes for a plant to mature simply by training the roots. That's called the rapid growth process. And so I plan on doing that with a lot of my black walnuts and pecans and other trees here as part of what we're doing, on site. Here's another fantastic specimen of our horse apple that you can see there. We've got them all over the place, and you can see back off in the woods there, way back over in there, bunch of horse apple trees all over the place that can be used for our roof structures, for various cob buildings. And I've also got metal cutting equipment. I don't have a mill anymore or a surface grinder, but I do have a 36-inch gearhead bench lathe, which will suffice for creating bowls and other different types of things with the horse apple trees. I'd love to make some bows, like long bows and stuff. I think that would be really cool. Here's another black walnut that's back here behind me, and another gnarly horse apple for hobbit houses. We got so much potential here. And here's another one that's growing straight behind me. Yeah, right there. That's a fairly straight horse apple. And so anyway, and I'm stepping on black walnuts every place I go around here. They're all over the place. That's the real gold mine. Black walnuts and pecans. My goodness. I mean, just look at the ground. It's just littered with them. It's just littered with them. Boom. 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 And they're everywhere around here. And so we've got plenty of potential for making money. And then here's the actual walnut when it breaks out of the black casing. And this one's ready for planting. It's really cool to watch how all that does. Here's our goat pen. We had that set up, but I had to let them go. I didn't know how long I was going to be when I'd injured myself, and when I came back, they were gone. And here's my camp here, right there. You can see my tent. Got tools under the black tarp. And you can see my pickle barrels back there, which pickle barrels I put my clothes and other things in, other tools that have got to stay out of the weather. You can see in the background this green tarp. That's a wood chipper that James Brown brought up. You can see all the wood from the trees that I'm thinning out every place behind it, and then that becomes wood chips for our permaculture or even for our cob structures. Behind me you can see where I've been clearing. All this was like a jungle when I first got here. You would not believe how thick it was, and man, I was covered in sumac for the first month I was here, and I'm still digging trees out. You can see right here where the wisteria and the honeysuckle and the sumac is just taking over, and all these are black walnuts that I'm digging out. And there's just hundreds and hundreds of black walnuts, which are my mother stock trees, which I want to produce baby black walnuts, which will create the nursery. And then this large one behind is also a black walnut that had fallen, and it's actually still growing. That one that's fallen over there that you can see where the animals are sleeping in, and the deer come up. They don't even mind me being here. I've had one of the biggest bucks I've seen. He had about 3 inches between his front 2 tines, and then the dew claws on every freaking step. And I saw him a couple of weeks ago. In fact, it was right back here where I'm getting ready to take you. It was the day after I had dug all this out and had literally weed-eated my way down to the upper pond, and I had run into that buck. And he's well over 250 pounds. I'd say he's 275. Couldn't get a good count on how many points, but you know, looking at the spread, he had to be a 10-pointer. Back in my days when I used to deer hunt, I'd hunt the same deer for years. He'd hunt me. We'd begin to be friends, and when I'd finally get my shot, I would never take it. You know, a lot of times I'd be coming out of the woods and see his tracks and my tracks as I was coming out. Yeah. Anyway, I caught him on the other side of the upper pond back there. That was the day after I cleared all this area out and finally made it into the upper pond. Eventually I'm gonna drain this pond. We're gonna dig out all the clay here and make this pond much deeper, and use that clay for our pots or pottery or cob structures or aquaponic structures. And that's that upper pond right there. And anyway, this is where the panther and the bear had come through. At least James and his boys and a bunch of his crew. Man, I am so grateful for James. As soon as I said I was coming up here, he has brought his crews, his tools, his family to come help and participate in what I'm doing here. But anyway, I was seeing all the tracks of the bear and the panther and bobcats, the deer and everything. I was at least getting to show them what was going on. It rained its rear end off yesterday, and as you can see, there are no tracks right now. And so anyway, I was at least able to show and to document and have others confirm, you know, what it was that I was seeing. I can see also the same thing that I was saying before, all around this area being beach, where all this grass is. All the woods thinned out, leaving the trees, but a high graze line back there. And then aquaponics coming off all the hills with the feeders where the water is pumped out of the stock pond. And this pond I want to put rainbow trout in, because other people fish the other pond, and this one I have control over, so I can set it up for commercial grade, and I want to do rainbow trout and bluegills and a couple other different types of fish here, and then have it as maybe a clothing optional beach for the summertime. Another thing they don't have around here. But anyway, where we've got the aquaponics where it's running off the top of the hill coming back into the pond, and like I said, having about a 4-foot wide, 8 to 10 foot long troughs that's built staircased like locks in a dam, where we've got various vegetables growing, or starter trees or whatever. Somebody's back there shooting. rifle season just opened up for the deer, and it's 44-44 as I look down. I can barely see that. Yeah, you can see all the sumac, and this is poison sumac right in here. Right now, all the sap that causes the poison, it's all down in the roots, so right now it doesn't get you. I don't know if you could hear that, but we got a bunch of ducks just flying in. That was pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, I'm trying to get all the sumac and all the vines and the briars, the blackberries and everything. I'm trying to get all that cleared up right now while it's wintertime, and that's my main goal, is to clear that up where we can bring our goat and chicken tractors and put it back in the same areas. And your goat will literally take everything down to the ground level. They'll pretty much eat things down to its nub, and the chickens will till the soil, and both of them will fertilize the plants. And you just move your chicken tractors along. It's still free range. You're moving them a time or two a day on a daily basis so that there's plenty of food for the animals to eat. But around here with panther and bobcats and coyotes, and from the skies we got hawks and other types of other critters. Goats and chickens wouldn't last too long, neither would turkeys or anything else, if you don't put them into chicken tractors. And if it's going to be on the farm, we got to have some work producing from, from the animals that we're bringing in, just like anybody who's coming here. There's many people who have responded, who've heard me talking about what I'm doing here and what the dream and the plan is. But many of them are used to being on grid, and many persons just don't understand what it's like as an Arctic vortex comes through, like has happened since the end of October here. I mean, this was a very critical and almost deadly situation for anybody who doesn't know what's going on. I mean, I'm equipped for the Arctic. I've got extreme cold weather, 50 below zero sleeping bags, and Swedish military parkas and stuff. That even with that, the humidity here, it was a very tough thing for me to deal with. And I know how to survive the stuff. There's a lot of people that have inquired and wanted to come, but they don't understand how critical the situation is this year. And I'm not trying to discourage, I'm highly encouraging people, but they gotta know what's going on. They gotta know if they want to come here, we're off grid. We can't run a generator 24/7 just to keep heat going in, so you're gonna be comfortable. When I wake up, I might turn the generator on for a little while and have a couple cups of warm coffee and maybe a space heater to warm me up. But then I got to gear up, go outside, and get to work. That's how I stay warm. Anyway, I do encourage anybody who wants to participate in the reclamation of this land. You can see how many black walnuts and pecans we've got planted. All these little pink ties are either pecans, black walnuts, or oaks that I want to keep. Eventually, I'm going to build my residence. This is the top of all the land here. I'm going to put my straw bale cob structure, rammed earth structure, right among those trees. And I want to leave as many as I can. I'm very earth conscious about what I do, but we've got to trim all this up and get it down so that so that we can be ready for springtime and ready for persons who are coming in and want to participate with the permaculture and aquaponics and in the other projects, alternative energy research, and you know, teaching how to build projects, or any craftsman, you know, wood turners or blacksmiths or yoga instructors. I can see having yoga courses out here, you know, or you know, for those of us who are participating in what we're doing on the property, you know, having, you know, group gatherings for yoga in the morning, you know, good stretch outs and stuff to keep us from getting hurt. One of the next things that I got to do, I had, many of you guys know I'm into 3D printing, and I'd been trying to figure out how I was going to set up a larger 3D printer. And when I was talking to my daughter, she said that she and her boyfriend, the father of my grandson, wanted to build a house in a connex, a storage container. And as I was thinking about that, I said, well, you know, if you're wanting to leave Jackson, Mississippi, come on up to Memphis, to your property, and build here. Well, she didn't want to do that, but as I was thinking about what she had said, it dawned on me that building the large 3D printers, because many of you guys have seen my video on 3D printing recreational vehicles to remove yourself from being on grid in the banking system. And as I was trying to figure out how we could build large 3D printers, it dawned on me that shipping containers are the perfect thing to use. It's already square and heavy duty, and it could very easily support gantries, and it would be phenomenal to build large 3D printers so we can print electric vehicles. That's what I want to do, print electric vehicles, print alternative energy devices, print parts for the permaculture and aquaculture, to print things that we can use off grid in a situation like this. Well, one of the first things that I've got to do is to get another shipping container, and right behind me is where that's going to go, right up in there. And what I'm looking for is a 53-foot super high cube, which is 11-foot tall ceiling, where I can put 3D printers up high, small 3D printers in this first group, but I can bring in my lathes and my other saws and have a place for all the tools to go into. And part of it is going to be my living quarters until I can build a house back up in here. And I want to frame it in and come back in with some closed cell spray foam and insulate it. Of course, LED lights. I would like, since I had so much experimentation into fracturing water, I would like to even use my solar panels. I want to set solar panels up on top of it, and I would like the solar panels to fracture the hydrogen and oxygen, and to set that up as my my cooking media instead of using propane or wood, and potentially my heating media. And seeing as the ground is already 55 degrees here, constant year-round, I can do geothermal for cooling in the summertime. And so anyway, getting the shipping container, which these days they're actually fairly inexpensive. I've seen the high cube 45 and 50 foot for as low as $2,600. It's going to cost me about $2,000 to insulate with the spray foam, and that was a urethane that I was looking at. I really want to use a hemp-based or a soy-based closed cell spray foam. And then I'm going to need probably another $600 or $800 for good quality windows and doors. Half of it is going to be a shop, the other half is living quarters. And all of these things are what I'm doing. And what my vision and my goal is, I was talking to my wonderful friend Sandra Walter, and she, oh man, I wish you'd come here, Sandra. I think that would be wonderful. I wish a lot of people would come here and spend time. I see many of these places being built all over the country where we can be transient. I am nomadic. I don't know that I could be here all the time, but I would like to build something where I could come and go as I so chose, and where other engineers and persons doing research and crafts could come and go as they so chose, to come and build a cob structure off-grid, and to leave before that 6 months, maybe even if it's just the other side of the property. I don't know how that works right now, but hit. And fresh steer trucks. And to come and go, and to create new communities in situations that we haven't been doing yet. See, if you build your place, then as you go, then someone else can come in as you go, and to stay in it for the months while you're gone. And when you get ready to come back, you always just call in and say you're coming back, and we can move whoever's in the place in another place. One thing you don't want to do is to not have anybody staying in the house. It's like not driving a vehicle. If you don't drive your vehicle, it's going to break down on you. You've always got to be utilizing those tools. Well, this all is, hey, you can see my old truck. Old trucks really been through a lot. The old 4th Marine Division tag on there is my grandfather's from Saipan and Tini and Iwo Jima. Yep, those guys were some tough critters, and that's who actually taught me a lot of what I know. It's the same grandfather. This truck was a Hurricane Katrina salvage. There was water coming in the doors when it got rescued just before the apartment complex went down and 28 buildings went out at 11:08 in the morning, and I got pictures of all that on Facebook. Anyway, my grandfathers, both of them, taught me quite well, and this is utilizing everything that I've ever, all the skills I've ever been taught, all the skills I've ever remembered of many lifetimes, all into one, right here and now. And it's going to take financial support too. And I've got some money, but if I'm out working, trying to get a couple of dollars at just above minimum wage, I'm not out here doing what I need to do to make this dream come true. And so for anybody that that feels called to and can support a project as this financially, please, I accept donations at pearls2u@hotmail.com. That's my email address. PEARLS, the number 2, the letter U, at hotmail.com. pearls2u@hotmail.com. I can't always respond to persons online now, because when I'm coming in for a week, when I've not been in town for a week, I've got 10,000 messages, literally 10,000 messages, 100 pages of messages on my Hotmail account when I go back. And the one thing on grid I want to do here is to set up satellite internet, and that's going to cost about $100 a month. I need batteries, I need solar panels, I need all kinds of things, I need tools, I need a bucket loader with excavator, tractor, or bobcat. Anyway, this is what I'm doing, and anybody who wants to participate, get in touch with James Brown or me. And that's the end of this video. Anybody who can send donations, please send donations. Anybody who wants to participate in the grid, raising the frequency here, please join us. Love y'all. Bye for now.